Hi, and welcome to English channel. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
Introduction. Salt is on every table in the world. We see it in a small jar. We use it every day. We add it to soup, rice, meat, and vegetables. Salt makes food taste better. For most people today, salt is just a simple seasoning. It is cheap and easy to find. But in the past, salt was much more than that. For thousands of years, salt helped decide where people lived. It helped decide how villages grew into cities. It helped decide which kingdoms became rich and which empires fell. A small white grain had the power to change human history. Salt is also deeply hidden in our language. When we say a person is worth their salt, we mean they work well and do their job. When we call someone the salt of the earth, we mean they are kind and honest. The English word salary comes from an old Latin word for salt. Long ago, Roman soldiers were paid with salt. Even common words like salad and sausage are connected to salt and food preserved with it. So here is the big question. How did something so small, so common, and so simple help build civilizations, create great wealth, and start revolutions that change the world? Part 1. A basic need. Humans cannot live without salt. Salt is not only a seasoning for food, it is a basic need for the human body. Without salt, people cannot live for long. Inside the body of a healthy person, there is always a small amount of salt. This salt helps the body work in the right way. First, salt helps send messages in our body. Our nerves use salt to carry signals from the brain to other parts of the body. When you touch something hot, salt helps the message travel fast, so you can pull your hand away. Salt also helps muscles move. Every time you walk, lift something, or smile, your muscles need salt to work. Even the heart needs salt. Salt helps control the rhythm of the heartbeat and keeps the heart beating again and again, day and night. In very early times, humans did not worry much about salt. They were hunters and gatherers. They ate a lot of meat and fish. Animals also need salt, and they get it from water and plants. When early humans ate animals, they got enough salt from their food. Their bodies had what they needed. But life changed when humans started farming. People began to eat more grains, vegetables, and plants. These foods are healthy, but they do not have much salt. Slowly, people started to feel a strong need for salty food. The human body learned to crave the taste of salt because it was necessary for survival. Salt had another very important role. It helped preserve food. When people covered meat or fish with salt, the food did not rot quickly. Salt pulled water out of the food and stopped tiny living things from growing. This simple method allowed people to store food for a long time. Thanks to salt, humans could survive cold winters and times of hunger. They no longer had to find fresh food every day. They could stay in one place, build homes, and create villages. In this way, salt became the foundation of settled life and early civilization. A small grain helped humans survive, stay together, and build the first societies. Part 2. white gold of the ancient world. As human societies grew, salt became more than a basic need. It became a valuable resource. In the ancient world, people often called salt white gold. It was not shiny like real gold, but it was just as important. 2.1 Salt and the rise of early settlements. When we look at the first cities in history, we see a clear pattern. They were built near fresh water, such as rivers or springs, but they were also built near sources of salt. People needed clean water to drink, and they needed salt to survive and store food. Salt, however, was very heavy. A large amount of salt was difficult to carry. Before modern machines, people had to move it by hand or with animals. Because of this, salt was slow and expensive to transport. In places far from the sea or salt lakes, salt became rare and costly. Only rich people could buy it. This made salt a powerful and valuable good. 2.2 The Trade Revolution of Ancient Egypt. One of the biggest changes in salt trade came from ancient Egypt. Around 4,000 years ago, Egyptians had a new idea. Instead of selling salt by itself, they used salt to preserve fish from the Nile River. They covered the fish with salt and dried it. The fish could then stay good for a long time. After that, they sold the salted fish to people in other lands. This was a smart move. Salted fish was easier to transport than fresh fish, and many people wanted it. This idea created one of the first real supply chains in history. Fishermen, salt workers, traders, and markets all worked together. Thanks to this system, cities could grow far away from farms and rivers. Ancient Egypt became rich and powerful by selling salted food. 2.3 Empires built on salt. Many great empires understood the power of salt. In the Roman Empire, salt was very important. The Romans built a famous road called Via Salaria, or the Salt Road. It helped move salt from the coast to the center of the empire. Roman soldiers were sometimes paid with salt, which gave us the word salary. The Romans also made famous salted foods, such as garum, a salty fish sauce, and preserved meats and cheeses. In West Africa, salt was traded for gold. Large blocks of salt were carried by camel caravans across the hot desert. At trading centers, salt was exchanged for gold. This trade made the Mali Empire very rich and powerful. In ancient China, salt was produced on a large scale. The government controlled salt production and trade. This salt monopoly gave the state a lot of money. It helped pay for big projects, including parts of the Great Wall. When salt became money, it also became power. And where there is power, conflict is never far away. Part 3: Salt Taxes, War and Revolution. As salt became more valuable, rulers and governments began to see it in a new way. Salt was not only food, it was money. And where there is money, there is power. Across history, many states decided to control salt. They said only the government could produce it, sell it, or trade it. This system was called a salt monopoly. The main goal was simple: collect taxes and fill the royal treasury. But salt is not a luxury. Everyone needs it to live. When the state put high taxes on salt, poor people suffered the most. Rich people could still buy salt, but the poor had to choose between food and salt. Slowly, salt stopped being a symbol of life and became a symbol of injustice. In many countries, anger over salt taxes grew for years. This anger did not stay quiet. Again and again, it turned into resistance, rebellion, and revolution. 3.1 France, the Gabelle tax. One of the most famous and hated salt taxes in history was in France. It was called the Gabelle. This tax was extremely unfair. In France, not all regions paid the same salt tax. Some areas paid very high prices for salt, while others paid much less. In some places, people were forced by law to buy a certain amount of salt each year, even if they did not need it. Selling or making salt without permission was a serious crime. By the year 1780, the salt tax made up about 22% of the royal income. This money supported the king, the nobles, and the church. Meanwhile, ordinary people struggled to survive. Many families could not afford enough salt to preserve food or stay healthy. The anger was deep and widespread. People saw the salt tax as a clear sign that the system was broken. In cartoons and drawings from the time, common people were shown carrying the rich on their backs. In their pockets were words like salt and tax. When the French Revolution began in 1789, the Gabelle was one of the first laws people demanded to end. The salt tax did not cause the revolution alone, but it became a powerful symbol of everything that was wrong with the old system. The fall of the Gabelle showed that even a small grain of salt could help bring down a kingdom. 3.2 India, the Salt March. More than 100 years later, salt played a key role in another great struggle, this time in India. During British rule, the British government controlled all salt production in India. Indian people were not allowed to make their own salt. Even near the sea, they had to buy salt from the British at high prices. For millions of poor people, this law was cruel and painful. Mahatma Gandhi understood the power of salt. He said that after air and water, salt was one of the most basic needs of life. In 1930, he chose salt as the symbol of resistance against British rule. Gandhi announced a peaceful protest called the Salt March. He and his followers walked about 387 kilometers from his home to the sea. The journey took many days. Along the way, more people joined them. When Gandhi reached the coast, he picked up a small amount of salt from the ground. This simple act broke British law. The message was clear. If the British could control salt, they could control life. But if people could make their own salt, they could take back their freedom. The British arrested Gandhi and thousands of others, but they could not stop the movement. The Salt March became a turning point in India's fight for independence. Once again, salt showed its power to challenge an empire. 3.3 A global pattern. France and India were not alone. In China, the government also controlled salt for centuries. High salt taxes caused anger among the people. In the 9th century, resistance against salt monopolies helped lead to rebellions that weakened and finally destroyed the Tang dynasty. Similar stories happened in other parts of the world. Again and again, salt taxes pushed people too far. Because salt touched everyday life, people could not ignore these laws. Hunger, unfairness, and anger grew together. Across cultures and continents, the pattern was the same. Salt became money. Money became power. Power became oppression. And oppression led to resistance. In the end, salt was more than a seasoning. It was a spark. A simple grain helped start wars, fuel revolutions, and change the course of history. Part 4. Conclusion. From treasure to everyday seasoning. In the modern world, the role of salt has changed greatly. For most people today, salt is no longer a matter of life and death. The biggest reason for this change is one important invention: the refrigerator. In the early 20th century, modern refrigerators became common in homes. They could keep food cold and fresh for many days or even weeks. People no longer needed large amounts of salt to preserve meat, fish, or vegetables. Food could be stored safely without drying or salting it. Because of this, salt lost its old role as a survival tool. At the same time, new ways to produce salt appeared. Machines made salt faster and cheaper than ever before. Salt mines, sea salt farms, and factories could supply huge amounts of salt to the world. Today, salt is easy to find and very cheap. Almost everyone can buy it. It is no longer white gold. It is an everyday product. But even though salt is no longer essential for survival, it has not lost its place in human life. For thousands of years, people ate food preserved with salt. Over time, the human taste learned to love salty flavors. In a way, our tongues and brains were trained by history. Even now, many people enjoy salty snacks, salty soups, and salty sauces. We may not need salt to survive, but we still want it to enjoy food. Traditional foods around the world show this clearly. In many countries, old recipes still use salt in the same way as in the past. We still eat pickled vegetables, dried fish, salted meat, cheese, and sausages. These foods are part of national culture and family memory. When people eat them, they are not only tasting food, they are tasting history. Salt also has new roles in the modern world. It is used in medicine, industry, and science. Salt helps clean water. It is used to keep roads safe in winter. It plays a part in making glass, paper, and many other products. Even today, salt quietly supports modern life in many ways. At the same time, salt brings new challenges. In many countries, people eat too much salt. This can cause health problems such as high blood pressure and heart disease. Doctors now tell people to reduce salt in their diet. This is a great change from the past, when people worried about not having enough salt. The same substance that once saved lives can now harm them if used too much. Looking to the future, salt will continue to change its role. Scientists are studying better ways to use salt for clean energy, such as storing power from the sun and wind. In some places, salt is used in new types of batteries. Salt may help solve future energy problems. just as it helped solve food problems in the past. Climate change may also affect salt production. Rising seas and changing weather can damage salt farms. At the same time, salt will still be important for preserving food in places without modern technology. In this way, the old and new roles of salt may exist together. So what does all this mean? It means that salt is never just salt. A single grain carries a long human story. It tells us about survival and hunger. It tells us about trade and wealth. It tells us about power, war, and revolution. It tells us about freedom and resistance. From ancient villages to great empires, from kings to common people, salt has touched every level of human life. Today, when you sprinkle a little salt on your food, it feels simple and normal. But that small white grain holds thousands of years of history. It helped humans survive the cold. It helped build cities. It made empires rich. It caused anger and change. It even helped people fight for freedom. Salt is not just a seasoning. It is a silent witness to the human journey. It is the simple ingredient that helped shape our world.
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.